one of the videos I made a few days ago, I got a comment on it, which is a relatively rare thing for me. So that's exciting. At least a real comment. I get a lot of like porn spam on there, but it was a real comment, and it was somebody that was appreciative and said they really enjoyed the video and they loved the way of thinking, and they were going to subscribe, and seemingly they did. So thank you for that if you're watching this. So it made me think though, right? So I've talked about this before, that I'm trying to do this thing now where like I try and quote unquote earn my emotions. So if something happens and I find myself angry or upset or scared or happy, excited, etc., I want to understand that, right? Because I want to have more insight, more clarity on how I think and all that stuff. So in this moment when I read that comment, it felt really good. Like I remember feeling like a level of pleasure in the generic form that's higher than I would normally feel. Right? There was something very potent about that made it feel very good. So I wanted to earn that emotion and understand and kind of trace it back to say what's really behind this feeling of feeling good. And as with most things, you can go through multiple levels of it. And the first is like, well, it's nice. Somebody said something nice. It's a compliment. I put time into it. That feels good. Et cetera, et cetera. But again, the level of or the degree of potency of this feeling of pleasure was too high for me to just accept that. Like, to me, it felt like this ties back to some base value driver that I have that was being fed by that comment. Now, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's what I was trying to figure out. And on the negative side, right, as I've said, I'm a bit of a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, ideally. So I have this thing, seemingly this relationship with external validation and recognition that weighs very heavily for me. So I'm always a little bit cognizant of that. And when I get a positive comment like that, it feels so good. I'm a little cautious of should it feel that good? Should I be that happy that somebody liked what I did? Why is that such a driver of, or so much in control of my happiness? Is somebody else telling me I did a good job? So I started going down that path of thinking I really think I need to fix this, right? I think there's something bad in that. And I think there's truth to that. As I was kind of following this thread, I do think I should have more confidence in my own abilities and be happy with the work I do and what I do, because I feel good about it, right? You want to have that internal source of confidence and to be able to derive your own pleasure from yourself. You don't always want it to be dependent on somebody else. And as I was kind of working through that, I was like, yep, that checks out. That makes sense. And then I started thinking I kind of know that though. Why would I still let it happen, right? It's not to say that I'm not still letting it happen. I am, but it felt like there was more to it. It's because even as I was processing that, I was still happy and felt good about getting this positive comment, even with that thought of I should be able to do this internally myself. So as I kept digging, I started to realize, and it ties back to a video I made recently that actually was the video that the person commented on, which was about why I love math so much. And my son was doing his math homework, and there was a portion after he did, his subtraction or whatever equation, that you checked it. And the check allowed you to have confidence and certainty that you did the work right, and you're good and you can move on. I think that comment acts as a bit of a check for me in real life. I think one of the things I strive for is to be good at something, right? To be uniquely good at something. Putting it simply, I want to be special in some way. And we could talk about that, and I have in other videos, if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I have this drive where I want to add value, I want to be special, I want to be unique, and I want to be recognized for it. And this gets to the point of why that comment felt good and the check I'm talking about. When I say I want to be recognized for it, I don't particularly like the act of being recognized, right? I don't like being in the room and everybody, telling me I did a good job. That feels uncomfortable to me. I also want to make sure that I earned it. It's not just literally somebody giving me a compliment. If it feels like it's bullshit, it's not genuine, then it's useless to me. But in this moment, I got that comment, so that felt good. I was recognized. There was something that called out that I was good at something. And I felt good about the video. I thought the concept was good, so I thought I earned it. And in many ways, I think that comment becomes a check for me, a real life check, where I could say, listen, I never know for sure, right? I have my own views in my own mind, thinking that what I'm doing is good. But if somebody comes along and gives me a positive, feedback or a comment, and I feel like it's legitimate and earned, and that recognition is there, well, that's as close as I get in real life to a check or some sort of validation that says, hey, you're on the right track. You're doing a good job. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I talk about all the time the idea of checking your instruments. When you have a thought, when you're thinking, a belief, you're going to take an action, check your instruments because you might not have clarity. I think of it very much along those lines, right? Feedback is important. I think where it goes bad is when people make external feedback or validation the whole thing. That's it. If I get it, great. If I don't, everything's shit and it all sucks. I think with everything, you need to balance it. You need to weight it properly. And for me, that's what I think I'm trying to do. So when I get that positive feedback, it's an input that gives me, as an instrument would, an external instrument, tells me like, hey, something you did here was good and you should feel good about that. So when I pair that with feeling good about it already, it's almost like you start to get that little bit of like a Saturday morning moment where things are aligning, right? I put in a lot of time towards it. I felt good about it. Somebody else told me it was good. It all feels legitimate. And that gives me permission to feel good about it. So all that's a long-winded way of saying why I was happy. Somebody gave me a positive comment on YouTube. But as with most of these things, I think going through this mental exercise of really understanding the first principles, the mechanics of what's underneath it and what's driving it is useful for me. Because as in this case, I want to separate the unhealthy thing, which is this need for external validation and maybe some insecurity in and of myself. But I wanted to separate that from the positive aspect of it, which is, hey, I want feedback. I want to understand if something is going good here or bad, or if it's, something's going well. And I think that's okay to feel good about.